I'm Snehal. Um, I'm a leadership coach and facilitator based out of Singapore, but I work globally. I'm also a stage 4 breast cancer survivor, if I can call it a survivor, but actually I'm going through my treatment. A little bit of background about me. Born and brought up in India, never thought I'd leave the country. 14 years of corporate HR leadership experience across diverse industries and sectors. Typically service oriented mindset, very risk averse, always been in such a family and never thought business or entrepreneurship was something that I would even think of trying out. Always thought I would retire. Moved to Singapore with my husband in 2019 end because he got an opportunity here. I was pregnant at that point and I thought, okay, I'll take a break and then I'll try to figure my next job. However, I gave birth during lockdown in April of 2020, and shortly after, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. Metastatic basically means it's stage 4, the last stage, and the cancer at the time of detection had already spread to different parts of my body. It had gone into my lungs, my liver, and my bone. The first thing I did, like everybody that we typically do, you go onto the internet and start searching. And my 5-year survival rate that was given for stage 4 breast cancer was 25%. Basically, that means my chances or probability of living beyond 5 years is only 25%. Now, what happened since my detection and the shock that I got? I've been through a lot of sessions of various treatments. The doctors, of course, wanted to throw everything at me to help me get better because I was only 37 years old at the time of detection and no history of cancer in my family, any sort of cancer actually in my family. So you can imagine the shock that, I must have felt. But more than what started happening in terms of the treatment was I started, of course, undergoing a lot of physical changes and side effects that I can say that I started having, numbness, a lot of other of course, changes in physical features that we tend to go through when we go through cancer treatment. But more than the physical, I didn't realize the emotional ramifications that would come. A lot of us go through emotional turmoils in our life. We always have this negative self-talk that starts happening with us. And a lot of it also happens in a new phase of life when you're trying to begin something. Whenever you're in your comfort zone, you might still be okay. Anything new that's happening in your life or a new challenge that's being thrown at you, and your mind goes into like complete berserk mode. And that's what happened. I think the first thing for me was I'm going to die. And we all know rationally at some point, practically that you are going to die at some point. But when there's a statistic or a probability pegged against you, that's when things start getting uncomfortable. The next thing, of course, was my look started changing. I lost all my hair. I don't know how many of you know Lord of the Rings. In that, there is this special character called as Golem, Smeagol, and he lives in the cave. And every day I'd look at myself in the mirror, and I think I looked more and more like him. To an extent where I remember telling my husband once, very like I sometimes have this dark sense of humor that I'm started looking like Golem. And I was so afraid of looking at myself. And many of us have that, right? We can't put ourselves out there because we're worried about judgment. We're worried about what people will think of us, what they are already thinking or perceiving when they see us out there. And that's what started happening. I started feeling that if I'm scared of looking at myself in the mirror, how would other people look at me? Will they judge me? Will they pity me? And nobody likes to be pitied, right? No matter what is happening in our life, we don't want to be felt sorry for. We don't want people to say, oh, poor thing, tragedy, it happened so young. Her child was just 4 months old at the time of, detection. So I went into a shell. I became a hermit. I stopped stepping out. I stopped taking my kid to the park. Basically, I started playing the waiting game. My motto of my life was let me be cancer free, then I will think about my future. Let me figure out this entire thing. Let me say I have won against the war of cancer. Thankfully, I didn't do that because it's been 3 years since this journey has started and I'm still not cancer free. I actually went through chemotherapy just yesterday. Now, what happened after that, couple of months down, was a friend of mine reached out. Now, guys, when I'm telling you my story, it's also certain tidbits that I'm going to be giving in terms of principles that have helped me to start even the journey of entrepreneurship. So a friend reached out, she was a counselor, and I remember her telling me, Snehal, let's talk. And my first reaction, even though I'm in HR and I know the importance that can be given to therapy and coaching and a lot of these other things that we do, or we would want to seek help for, I told her I don't need help. We always believe we are tough nuts. We don't need anything. We don't need anyone. We can manage everything on our own. Unfortunately, I couldn't and I didn't realize it. Two things that she helped me was the way I saw cancer. It was not, it stopped becoming my whole life and was only a part of my life. The second was the way I saw my future. She just helped me unfreeze myself. So many times as entrepreneurs, we do that, right? We are waiting. We're just playing this waiting game for that big moment to come when probably the entire universe will align. I'll see a shooting star. Everything will be in place. And only then I will be ready to begin my journey. So that's what was happening with me, right? I was like, I have this deadline of being cancer free. That's when I will start. So we did this entire exercise of, what will I get if I wait? What will I get if I don't? What's the worst that can happen if I start my journey of thinking of a future? What is the best that can happen if I wait? So different types of SWOT analysis I was, doing in my head. But a very nice thing I worked on at that point. Denise, can you go to the slide, please? I worked on a vision board. I don't know how many of you all are aware of a vision board context. It is basically one question that I asked myself. It was, what kind of life will make me happy and proud? Now, usually when we think of vision boards or when we think of certain questions like this, our first reaction is to put up things out of a sense of lack. Whatever I don't have will be part of my vision board. I need gym. I need good food. I am not doing any of that. I need to put all of that. The thing is, you need to start thinking of, and because why you don't think of the other part is because it's scary. There's too many fears attached. It's too much of discomfort. I want to think of it only from what I can achieve now. The vision board is a wonderful exercise where you should do it from the concept of abundance. What if there were no fears? What if there were no roadblocks? What if there was no challenges? What would you want to do then to achieve a life of great pride and joy? Now, that is what I landed up working on. You can, search on this on the internet. You can do it for your career. You can do it for your life. You can do it for relationships. You can do it for whatever you want. So next slide. So I made mine. This is after like 2-3 iterations that I actually made this. A lot about people, a lot about self-love, a lot about, what I wanted to do. So two things stood out for me at that point of time. And the important thing in a vision board is don't think of how you will achieve it. Just think of the what. What will I do? Don't how will happen over time. It's just about the what. So for me, there were two things. Next, please. I put two things out there which I had no clue how I was going to do because this was a point of time where I was a hermit. So I wanted to help people, like there's two women sitting there. I wanted to help people, enable people's lives, and I wanted to do something for the cancer community. Now, I had no clue at that point what I would be doing, but I knew at that time that these were certain things that would make me proud of myself. And I wanted to make a career in making a difference or making an impact on people's lives. Next slide, please. So here's the crux. Okay, what did I want? Many times we know what we don't want in our, in our entrepreneurship, right? I don't want a 9 to 5 job. I don't want stress, or I don't want to do that. I don't want a bad boss. Whatever it might, many times we begin with what we don't want, which is fair. Okay. So for me, it was very clear. I didn't want a 9 to 5 job. And many of y'all have written, you want flexibility. You want less frustrations in life. So whatever you need in life, you will know what you want and what you don't want, and which will help you then get to the stage of what can I do with that sort of knowledge. So I didn't want a high stress job because of course I was going through treatment. I could have done something. I didn't. So I basically was like, no Monday morning blues. I want to do something I'm passionate about. 14-15 years of working in HR. I have built certain skills. Let me see what I can do with that. Now, what started happening was, next please. I knew that, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I had a lot of these limiting beliefs that were there in my head, right? The first was, am I okay even starting my business? What if I fail? I have completely grown up with the context of having a paycheck at the end of every month. How am I going to figure that out, right? Having your next paycheck is what you now have to start figuring rather than just working and knowing that even if I go on a holiday, I'm getting my paycheck, right? So what if I fail? There were so many things going on in my head. At that time, I realized the importance of knowing your why. If you know why you want to do something, even if you don't know exactly what it is you want to do, if you go one step back and know, why am I even thinking of doing this? Why am I wanting to put myself through this agony or whatever it is? This is what will keep you going in your darkest of times. Know your why. And for me, it was that future that I was creating for myself, where cancer was not my life, where other parts of my life were equally important or actually more important for me. Cancer treatment would continue, and as and when I get better, I get better, right? But till then, I can't keep waiting. So that was my why for doing it. Be productive, do something I love. The next was, what did I want to do, right? What do I want to do now, knowing all of this? How could I pivot after 14 years, right, of doing one thing? For some of us, it's trial and error. Some of us, we know it's our passion. Some of us know it's discussions, right? For me, it was a random discussion with my husband. He said, oh, you had done something in 2015. What happened to that? And that's when my coaching thoughts came, because I'd done a training in coaching, but I'd never taken it up that time because I didn't need it at that point of time. So then, when everything started clicking in place, then I was like, okay, let me find out more about it. And that's the way to begin came up. I had to reach out to people. My where to begin happened from reaching out to people, because I didn't have knowledge about this space as much as I should have. I didn't know the landscape at that point of time when I was coming back. So I remember reaching out to somebody. Now the question is, will they ghost me? Will they reject my question? Will they not even, what will they do, right? So those fears were, of course, attached. Crazily, this person answered, who is now my mentor. I will also say in this journey, mentorship is extremely, it's a very productive and symbiotic relationship, I feel. And it really helps you, because brainstorming, advice, sounding board, sometimes even pushing you to think differently is what they can do for you, which many times you can't do for yourself, right? So then he became my mentor at the end of it, helped me understand. And the only thing he said when I told him whatever I'm going through, right? I'm going through chemo, but I still want to do this, blah, 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 blah. And the only thing at that time he said was, don't worry, Snehal, we will do it. If you find such people in your life who can instill that sort of quiet confidence in you, please hold on to them and make them a part of your tribe. The journey of entrepreneurship is very lonely. Many times we are like, oh my God, I'm just like staring at my screen all day. I don't know what I'm doing. Or maybe for you all, it's, you're reaching out to different markets. It is a lonely journey. So build that tribe. You will find people in this journey who are like-minded like you. You will also find people who are not like-minded, who have vested interests, but you will learn. You will learn who your people are. Basically, it's all these people in different boats, but in the same storm, right? So they will empathize with you, they will push you, they will motivate you, they'll make it happen, right, with you. And the next thing, of course, was that the one of the fears that I had was asking for help will make me weak. For so many years of a life, I had not done that. Yes, counseling helped me. I did accept help, but this required a very different sort of help, because my baby was very small. He was about 10 months old at that point of time. But the way my family came through for me, my in-laws came through for me, saying, don't worry, just do what makes you happy. And that's what I started doing, and building my tribe and making it happen slowly and confidently. But then I started having even a lot of business issues, right? We always have that. Right? How do we begin? Firstly, in Singapore, I had a DP issue. I was on dependent pass. I couldn't work in Singapore. First big challenge. Now, what do I do? So I said, okay, let it be. I will not work here. I will work in whichever country allows me to work. So I worked in India. I worked in Europe. I worked in various locations which allowed me to work. Of course, the money was getting diverted to India. But I was like, I have to start somewhere. I can't now wait now. When will this change? When will I ever get to work? I thought of a sole proprietorship at that point, but I was not sure about that. So I was like, okay, let me just start with whatever I can and then build it with next steps. The second was being okay with rejection. I was extremely scared of rejection, saying that they are rejecting me. I was always making it personal about me. People would, Snehal, let me get back to you. I'm not so sure. There were very few people who actually gave me a chance. And the only reason, and I was like, okay, we tried to negotiate the terms, and I was like, okay, I almost did it for free. But the important thing at that time for me, again, know why you're doing it. You need validation at that point that what you're doing is right, and you need testimonials for yourself, right? You need to have that word of mouth spreading. So why I was doing it made me think, okay, let me figure this out. This is more important for me than currently my commercials will build once I get my testimonial, whatever, I can scale that up. And the last for me was managing my self-talk. The self-esteem issues never go. You're always wondering about yourself. You're always second guessing yourself. That imposter syndrome is such a huge thing in our head. Am I good enough? People will see through me, right? A lot of these things. That is the time you have to figure what are the two, three things I can keep reminding myself, right? For me, it is my tribe. Very often I go to my husband and I'll be like, this happened. And he just gives me this perspective or feedback that you can get, testimonials, which you can read sometimes and really go back to. Some of these things can help you just calm your imposter syndrome or the negative, they call it the inner critic. So just calming your inner critic down a lot. Next, please. So with this, I'm ending. Short thing. Key learnings that I've had in my journey since then. Know your why. It's extremely important. Money matters, guys. Many times, understanding your cash flow. Some of us don't come from that space of understanding commercials. In entrepreneurship, you need to. Knowing your cash flows, knowing how things work, knowing how to invest. The third is, what have I learned in this first year? I call this as your pause. You need to take pauses. It's like a Formula One race. Even those high-end cars need pit stops. And those pit stops will be hardly like 10 seconds, okay? They're not expecting you to do like 20 hours of pit stops, right? You're not expected to do 1 hour. They're very short pit stops that you need to keep taking to go to how do I learn and how do I, how will I learn? What have I learned so far? And so on. And the next one is practice. I know the first step, the inertia will always be very high. It's like that big push you need to make. But once you make a habit, forget a habit, you take the first step. I call it baby steps. Always take baby steps. The journey becomes easier. Riding a bicycle for the first time wasn't easy for you. You fell 10 times, but now you can just ride a bicycle even if you've not done it for 10 years, right? So then it becomes a muscle for you. Uh, the next part is strengths and weaknesses. Many times we try to make our weaknesses into strengths. Usually, I would say try not to doing that in the beginning. Okay. Make your strengths your superpowers. They're anyway your superpowers. Use them. But your weaknesses that you have, ensure that they don't derail your success. You have to manage your weakness so that they don't derail you. That's pretty much it at the beginning. You go to do everything. Like, for example, if my kid is not like some Einstein at maths, I'm not going to try to make him an Einstein at maths. I'm going to ensure whatever he's good at, he really does it well. And just ensure he doesn't fail in maths and does decently well. Right. And the last, of course, is have your tribe in place. Right. I can't say enough. And your tribe can come from anywhere. Right. I remember once telling your client saying, I don't have any friends, which is all right. There are so many networking groups you have. There will be so many similar hobby groups that you have, different spaces where you can start socializing and making your tribe. You don't have to say that, oh, I didn't have friends from childhood and I can't make any now.